when I am not doing all the things that have just been spoken about, my main hobby is running. So I have been running for quite a while, and it doesn't feel correct to call it a hobby any longer because of how important running is in my life personally. Once in a while when I go running around my neighborhood, someone walks up to me and says, I like the way you run. I would wish to run as fast as you do someday, and so on and so forth. But one thing I always try to chip in is to let them know just how long I have been doing that. I've been running for 10 years. 10 years, every day, 3, 4 times, 5 times a week. And because of that, a lot of the things that have come together to make that possible, all of those sleeping early, waking up early, no alcohol, looking after nutrition and so on, are the kinds of things that make me able to do what I do. And I always tell people that it takes time. It takes time to be good at anything. It is true for endurance exercise, and it is also true about building fair and prosperous societies. One example that came to mind as I was trying to prepare for this was the example of the Netherlands. Does anybody here know how to ride a bicycle? Oh, wow. Nice. Bicycle people, that's great. So if you like cycling, you will love the Netherlands, because the Netherlands is one of the most bicycle-friendly places on earth. Actually, the Netherlands has 20,000 miles of dedicated cycling paths, which is the equal of tarred roads in some countries. But there was nothing inevitable about that state of affairs. People had to get involved to see that happen. In the 1920s and 1930s, the Netherlands was known for cycling. There are many people that loved to cycle in that country. But after the Second World War and with industrialization, cars began to take over the road, and gradually, as they began to dominate, you had deaths due to car accidents begin to go up. Unfortunately, there was one particularly sad death of a young girl in October 1971. Her name was Simone Langenhoff, and she was killed on her way to school. Her father, who happened to be a journalist at the time, wrote about his experience, and it was on the front page of the newspaper where he worked. In that newspaper article, he asked parents across the country to come together and organize themselves so that they can have safer societies for their children to grow up in. One of the main group that emerged from that call he made was known as Stop Child Murder. And they got together with other groups, like the Dutch Cycling Union, and engaged with the Dutch government over a period of several decades, 2 or 3 decades, in order to bring forward the policies that now make the Netherlands the cycling country that it is today. Building a prosperous society takes time. Another example that often comes to me when I think about governance and the long-term view that you have to have when you're talking about governance is the US. In the Emancipation Proclamation, between that time, from that proclamation that freed all the slaves, and the 1965 Civil Rights Act that then codified civil rights for all African Americans in the US, took a century, 100 years. In that time, you had all sorts of injustice, all sorts of discrimination across all levels of society throughout the United States of America. And it took a lot of that organizing, engaging with government at every level to begin to roll back many of those laws. And even from that 1965 to when an African American was then elected as president of the United States, took another 40 plus years. And they are still working on a lot of the issues regarding racial justice in America till today. Incarceration rates, housing discrimination, and so on. They are still working on it to today. And that is because when you want to build a fair society, there will always be something that needs to be changed, something that needs to be fixed. There will always be institutions that need to be held to account, and even individuals within those institutions. And when I think about all of these examples, I think about Nigeria. Nigeria will be 24 years as a democracy, its fourth attempt as a democratic country. 24 years feels like a long time, but not really. Because between 1960 and 1999, almost 39 years, Nigeria was a democracy for only 10 of those 39 years. Only 10. The rest of the time, it was under military dictatorship. Now, the implication of that is that a lot of our current institutions, our security architecture even, a lot of those things are made in the image of the military, and they need to be reformed in order to be responsive to the needs of our democracy. All of that hard work is going to take a lot of time to do. I have been, even as someone has read a lot of history and has been inspired by many examples across the world, I have been especially inspired by the new generation of young Nigerians who have begun to engage with governance processes over the last 2 or 3 years. Because the hope and the enthusiasm with which they have engaged with these processes show that they deserve, and they feel they deserve, a better country that works for everybody and not just the people who happen to be in office at one time or the other. Now, that momentum that has been generated, I dearly hope that it is sustained, because Nigeria's future depends on that momentum. It depends on that optimism. It depends on that hope, because all the actions that people take, getting up to go and register to vote, standing up to vote, going to queue to vote, all the things, even online when people, engage government officials about all the various things, that they do wrong, all of those engagements are reflections of that hope, and I hope that that momentum is actually sustained and increased as we go on in the coming months and years. Where I work, our mission is to provide the information necessary to ensure that that momentum is sustained in the best ways, with the best ideas for the future of Nigeria. Our own exercise, all the things we write, all the things we put out, are also reflections of that hope and of that optimism. Because if we felt that what we do doesn't matter, we wouldn't be doing it, we'd be doing something else. I would be running every day, for example. Before I close this, there are many times when in an athlete's life when they feel like they are not making progress. There are many people in civil society in Nigeria today who have been on several specific issues for years and years and years, and they don't seem to be making any progress. The newer ones who may have joined maybe in the last 5-10 years or so are meeting similar roadblocks, because when they try to engage with government at local and state and federal level, they don't seem to be getting anywhere. People who, for example, are engaged in trying to protect children may find that in certain states they are getting nowhere at all, and they have been and they've been meeting roadblocks for several years. In fact, when you're talking about basics like the domestication of the Child Rights Act, for example, some states have still not domesticated that particular act till today. But in those moments when you feel down, when you feel like not a lot is going right, I would like all of us to remember that building a fair and prosperous society takes time. Because if we all decide that we will keep at it for long enough, and we decide that nothing is going to deter us, and we keep that thought in our heads, we are going to eventually arrive in a moment where, as one famous quote goes, there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. Thank you.